Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on into the QSO Radio Show live on WTWW. Our guest, believe it or not, is somebody that is, I guess I want to say, related to the biggest ham event on the planet, all right? This is Michael Coulter, W8CI, and I don't know what his position is right now with Hamvention, but he's the man. So he's on with us tonight. We're going to talk all about Hamvention 2018. So welcome in, Michael. Where would you like to hit the ground running?
Hey, well, first, Ted, thank you for having me on your program. You're one of those many people that provide such a service for amateur radio throughout the whole world, and it's a real honor to be here. And I want to say hello to our listeners all over the world. If you want to contact me, if you look up the QRZ page, www.qrz.com, type in my call sign, W8CI, that's Whiskey 8 Charlie India, and you can either call me if you are a shortwave listener. You can leave me a web message, and there's a way to do that. Or if you want to send me an email, my email is listed on there as well. So anyway, thank you, Ted, for having me, and on you and your folks there. I live just south of Xenia, Ohio, in the countryside, and I believe you are down near Nashville. Is that correct?
Right, we're in Lebanon, which is a suburb that's kind of east of Lebanon by about 15 miles, maybe 18 miles.
Well, we started off pretty cold here today, Ted. We started at about 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ooh.
And but we're looking for things to start to warm up. So let's start talking about, let's kind of recap just a little bit from last year, and then we'll move into some of the things for this year. How does that sound?
Okay, now let me just ask a question here. I just want to squelch a rumor. It's not true that Donald Trump is buying the old Hara Arena, is it?
Well, I'm not really sure.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. See, rumors go all over the place. People start stuff, and somebody else repeats it, and somebody else repeats it. And oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah, I mean, I don't foresee, and maybe you have a better insight, but I don't foresee anything at all happening with Hara Arena anytime soon. I think that we're way past that, you know.
Yes, we are. We're way past that right now. It is it would cost a considerable amount of money to refurbish it, to even get it. It's been abandoned, and there's weeds growing up through the parking lot. And after being at the new location in Xenia, I can imagine going back there.
Oh no, I don't think so. And my observation was this last year. I thought to myself, now everybody's going to really be spoiled. I mean, really spoiled. And if they were have to go back there, I don't know what would happen. But I mean, it was just the layout of the buildings and being able to get around from building to building is easy. And then on top of that, it all converges in the middle with, I would call it a food court. I don't know what you call it, but what was that, David?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed the food. It was good.
So it was.
We're going to talk about that a little bit too. That food. And that.
Not to interrupt you, but we're just we're renegades here. We don't really. I couldn't help the Trump thing. It was just it just happened. I don't know. Anyhow, go ahead.
Well, maybe Mike Pence might come. He's an Indiana guy. He could drive right over. But
that would be nice. That'd be cool.
I don't know. I guess we'll leave that. We'll leave that political thing go right now. But anyway, let's start off a little bit about this last year, and then we'll go right into what we're seeing this year. If you want to hear a little bit of that, we sort of have this motto that we kick around a lot in our group. We just take a slamming and keep on hamming. I mean, it's pretty much true. up until the show last year, there were so many naysayers and backseat drivers, and we're working, morning to night and beyond to try to get everything set in a very short period of time. And I want to mention we only had like 8 months. We pushed the start button, 8 months to get ready to move a huge event like that. And I would say that those of you who put on HamFest throughout the world know that the planning that goes into that. We only had about 657 volunteers, and so, the event could not happen without those volunteers. So anyway, opening day came, and we're all kind of looking around going, wow, I wonder what the verdict will be. What will our fellow hams think? And, well, what was our first big issue, Ted? What do you think the first big issue we had was?
Getting the cars into the place. Getting people
exactly
parked.
Right.
That was, but I'll tell you what was really fun. Honest to goodness, you probably think I'm crazy. But being in this big line, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, and all of these guys on one simplex frequency and all talking back and forth, all stuck in traffic. And, I mean, you heard some of the craziest stuff you've ever heard in your life. I'm talking about humor and, passing the time on ham radio. So even though there was a major traffic jam coming in, honest to goodness, I don't think I've ever had that much fun on 2 meters in a long, long time. And that's the truth.
That's good to hear. I didn't hear that one, and but I will say the great thing that happened. Our Greene County Sheriff, we were talking to him about that major traffic snarl that happened on that Friday morning. So he said, "I'll take care of it." And the next morning, more people came. I believe there were more there Saturday than were there Friday. I mean, Saturday was just a beautiful, lots of people there. People were able to stretch out. There's so many places to go. And the Greene County Sheriff took care of that with his folks. But I'll tell you what else. He took another step. He's recently got his amateur radio license. So we are all really excited about that because he's like part of us now.
Now we got to get him on the radio. We got to get him on QSL.
Yeah, I would like to. I've already talked to him about doing that, and there's some other of the county people that I want to bring on. Let's get to that, but let's finish just kind of the highlights of 2017, the things that we faced. Now, I know everybody says, Michael, don't start off with the negatives, but these aren't really the negatives. This is the reality of what happened. And I truly believe that, what we want to do is let people know, absolutely, we face these problems. Absolutely, are we fixing them? You're darn tootin'. We're working hard on it. So, we had the big rains, heavy rains. I mean, unbelievable rains.
These were monsoons. I mean, gallons of water falling out of the sky, And on top of that, it was relentless. It didn't give up. So there was no time for anything to evaporate. I mean, it was just kept coming down,
It was more than the drainage systems could even handle. But you know what? I keep a fifth wheeler there. Well, I took it up, and it's sort of my office there, and it's a little refuge. But I just spent the week there because there's so much to do, people to meet, things to get ready, and so I'm laying there asleep in the, not really asleep, but I'm laying there trying to go to sleep. And that rain just was relentless on top of my fifth wheeler there. Just kept pouring. I thought, oh my gosh, what will it be in the morning? And so, it's all this, and, people were parking their cars. They were coming in. The rain's let up, most generally. And then we started getting all these complaints later in the day about the infield, where we have the flea market. And so one of the big questions, Ted, has been, what are you going to do about the mud this year? So we had a couple ideas. And, one of the ideas, we were going to sell jars. We've been trying to sell jars of a Hamvention 2017 flea market mud, and we couldn't get any buyers, but we tried. And the other thing that we thought about doing, maybe we should put a booth up right before you go into the flea market, and we could sell boots. You think that'd work?
Yeah, well, you know what I was thinking about? I don't know, when you were a kid, did you ever wear those things called galoshes?
Oh my God! My parents, they made me wear those things, and
they got little metal clamp over things,
little metal clamps on it.
But you know what's going to happen? You and I are going to set a stand up to sell boots and galoshes, and it won't rain. Okay, we'll go through a dry spell. There won't be an ounce of rain. We'll be stuck with all those things.
Well, it could be, your Hamvention commemorative boots. I mean, why not? We got shirts, and then you might as well get boots. Anyway, I'm making light of that a little bit. But I was at a meeting last night. I mean, a meeting tonight, meeting last night. We have meetings all the time about what we're going to do. So last night, General Chairman Ron Kramer and myself were at a meeting up in meeting with the Fair Board in the county up at the Expo Center, where we have the event. And we're really kind of hashing out what's, issues and things that we're working on next year and how we're doing it. We have a checklist of things we're going after. So what's happening with the mud is, you had those travel ways in the flea market, where the vehicles would travel, a couple of different kind of roadways through there. So the county engineer and the city people have gotten together, and as soon as the weather here straightens up just a little bit, they're going to peel off about 3 inches down each one of those lanes, 3 inches of sod, and then they're going to put about 3 inches of asphalt grindings, that come up off the road, and they'll be able to roll that in there. You won't be able to get stuck on that stuff, and that is going to happen very soon. When that does happen, I will be taking pictures and to prove to everybody, in earnest what we are doing to repair the traffic. And that's some people would like to have completely paved. That's very expensive, and so we are trying to get that. We are going to get that done. So we were very excited about that. We don't know if we will make it 100% with that, getting it done, but I think we will. There was a lot of commitment last night on that. So what do you think of that for taking care of mud?
Well, that sounds good, because as long as people can get around, if you have to step off onto some area that's wet, that's not much of a problem, as long as you can get around and not get stuck. I think that's the major thing. I know. I didn't even go into the flea market. I'm telling you the truth. I did not go. And I wanted to, but I just didn't have the time, because we're on the air, we're broadcasting, and you got to get in and out quick. And I just wasn't able to do it. But I enjoyed all of the indoor exhibits. I guess I went everywhere looking at stuff, and that was very cool. I missed the flea market though. But that's one thing about Dayton. It's so big that you just can't see everything. I mean, you try as you may, and then if you're like I am, if you're ADD, you go into an area where there's all kinds of stuff, you just get confused. That's why I'm walking around, even in the flea markets, like at Harrah's the same way. I get just like giddy, because I'm looking at all this old stuff that I used to own, Hallicrafters and Heathkit stuff and everything, and I'm dragging Holly around, boring her to death, saying, "Hey, look at that! I used to have one of those." And it's like she's going, "Okay." David, now on the other hand, let me tell you something, Michael. A couple of times this has happened. I built an 811A linear amplifier when I was very young.
Yeah.
And I'm walking through the flea market, and I looked over and I said, "Boy, does that thing look familiar?" And I looked over again, and I realized that was my old 811A amplifier I built, And so I had to buy it. Why not? I mean, you couldn't live without something like that, And that's happened 2 or 3 times where I've had something I built, and built from scratch. And then I don't know what happened to it. You know, when you're young, this stuff just disappears. Oh, you trade it for something you can't live without, you know. And then all of a sudden, there it is in the flea market. I'm like, oh, my God, you know. And I get all excited. And, of course, David looks at me and says, boy, that thing looks pretty rough. You really want to take that home.
Well, a lot of the time I look at it and it's like, that's really heavy, isn't it?
that's
why
thing.
You're being nice to me.
But we take wagons now. We take wagons. Because you have to
that's
have...
good. So I want to mention something in there. Go ahead, David. Finish the story. I like hearing it.
No, I'm good. I mean, it's but yeah, I mean, we've definitely found a couple of radios that he's had in the past, or even like the scratch ones that he had built up. It's really neat finding that stuff.
Well, I'm a sucker for that stuff too. I have pre-World War II shortwave receivers, old Brettlings, and they all of them work, and I really like the old equipment. I think, Ted, you and I are kind of like a vacuum tube guys living in a solid state world.
Yeah, yeah, and I think sometimes the vacuum's in my head, But
so go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to tell you a little bit of one of the issues that people have when they go into the flea market and they find this wonderful boat anchor, and we get a cart and they take it out to maybe the bus stop, and then they got to get on a bus and carry it on a bus. And we've heard a lot of complaints about that. Like, man, I can't get my boat anchor. I can't get this big, beautiful radio comfortably to my parking spot. So what we're doing this year, we are going to have a place where we take it, and it's a secure area. We give you, like a claim check ticket, and then you can get on the bus and go back to your car. And then we're going to have a quick drive-through access area where then you can come back, because the traffic will pretty much be, the major traffic is in the beginning of the day. So when you come back, easy drive-through, you check in your ticket, then you can fill up your pickup truck with all the things you bought in the flea market and then go. So that's it. We listened and heard people complaining about that, so we're making that change this year.
Like that is, that's very creative, because I'm lucky, I'm blessed. I go out and I find a Heathkit DX100, or an HA10 Marauder or something like that. But this 811A amplifier that I built is a real good example of that. And it's heavy. I mean, it's a heavy brute.
Oh, yeah.
So here you got Holly bringing us, I don't know, she went out and bought these fold-up wagons. They're just a full-size wagon like you had when you were a kid, but they fold up. So she's got two of those out there. And so, we cautiously pick it up, put it in the wagon, and David takes it to the car. So, I mean, we talked to I teasing David saying, you ought to start a shuttle service walking through there saying, hey, you want me to haul this to your car? And $10, I'll haul it to your car. But there's nowhere else on the planet, that you're going to find this stuff. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, even in the smaller Hamfest, you might find a piece or two, But I remember going out into the flea market and finding these old Altec green Altec mixers that we used at radio a long time ago. So I called a friend of mine. Actually, he's a fellow that gave me my first job in radio. And I said, hey, you know what they got out here? And he says, what? I said, they've got Altec mixers out here. I said, they're about $100. Oh, God, pick one up for me right now. I want one, So, you can find just about anything. I mean, it's, and if you're looking for, oh, my goodness, if you're looking for parts like capacitors and diodes and things like that.
Yeah, and in my mind, and I've got lots and lots of pictures of Hamventions of the past, and been at this for many years. But some of the displays that people do in the flea market are truly works of art. I mean, just the way they display things and the signs they have. I mean, it becomes and that's Americana. I mean, not even Americana, it's amateur radio at its best. And to see things like that displayed, beautiful old equipment, clean equipment, and it doesn't have to be that. It's just the fact that, people are gathered there selling this gear from ages gone by up until modern, and I don't know. That's part of the thrill of it for me, Ted, as well, and I'm with you on that.
Well, see, the whole
Hey,
thing
I
is.
got some.
Yeah, well, I don't want to hold you up, but we got plenty of time, so don't worry.
Okay.
It's the magic. It's the magic that is at Dayton. That even when we were at the Hara Arena with all of the handicaps that were there, and I don't think people realize how many there were. That's a pretty horrible place to have a hamvention, okay? But if you got into it, you didn't even think about that. It didn't even enter your mind. You know, you were too caught up in what I would consider to be an intangible thing, if you want to call it that, and that is the spirit of ham radio. And I don't even like calling it a hobby. I like calling it a fraternity. And Art Bell got me going on that. He said, no, it's not a hobby, it's a fraternity. And I'm like, yes, it is. But let me tell you a real quick story to illustrate something. When I was a kid, my dad gave me and I may have told this before, and if I did, excuse me, I'm old, okay, so I'll tell things over. My dad gave me an old Gruno shortwave radio. This was the first shortwave I ever had. And I was so intrigued by it, I had to take it out of the case so I could see the tubes glow, especially at night when I was laying in bed. I put the radio right by my bottom bunk bed, and I listened to all kinds of things. Man, I didn't know what half of it was. You know, there's some pretty strange noises on shortwave, you know. One of the strange noises is WTWW. But anyways, I had this thing by the bed, and I was standing on the... Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm standing on the concrete floor, or there's tile, and I reached over and I touched that radio, and it poked me. Not real hard, but it was aggravating. So I pulled I took the wooden knob for the volume control, and I slid it back on. I said, I ain't doing that no more. So I had that knob there. Well, later on, I tried to put the radio back in the case. The wooden knob was stuck. And I didn't know if my dad was going to be mad about that or not, but, you know, that was... And that's the last I remember of that radio. Okay, so now I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, 40-something years later. Mm-hmm. And Ronnie Millsap says to me, he says, Ted, there's a hardware store down there on 21st. They've got everything on the, I'm not like, they got radio stuff? Yeah, it's a hardware store. They got radio stuff. So David and I ventured in, and sure enough, this place was full of vintage equipment stuff. I mean, I was like, whoa, it was not like the Dayton Hamvention, but I mean, this hardware store was loaded. I have no idea if the guy collected or it was, I don't know. So I'm looking, and on the bottom shelf, there's a radio. Looks, has kind of a familiar thing. Now you gotta understand, my Gruno, I wired up an external, across the volume control so I could plug it into my reel-to-reel tape recorder and record, okay? And it had one of those electromagnetic speakers. I know you've seen those before. And I had to disconnect all of that to hook up a permanent magnet speaker. But then I also had to find a choke to put in there because they were using that as part of the filter supply. So anyways, I did all of that. So I said to David, what brand is on that radio down there? And he looks and he says, that's a Gruno. I said, no, it's a Gruno. I said, get that thing out of there and bring it here. And he brought it to me. And I looked, and there's the volume control modification so I could record all. It was the radio. It was the radio, including the wooden knob stuck on the volume control, but no case, just the chassis. And I asked the man, I said, what do you want for this? He said, about $55. I don't know what got into me, but I said, oh, my God, I just don't need any more stuff. I just don't need no more stuff. So we left. And then I started getting... remorseful. I should have bought that old radio. My God, what's wrong with me? But I dismissed it from my mind. But on Father's Day, there was this mysterious package wrapped up, and I opened it, and here's that radio. David had got it and snuck it in the trunk of the car without telling me. And so that was out. So now here I am at the Dayton Hamvention, and I'm looking around, and here is a pristine Gruno, the exact model of the one I had. Of course, now it's sitting in my ham shack. But I mean, and it works great. But you're right. See, this is a beautiful old radio, and it was the person restored it to mint condition. you know, and I've got it here, and I've got my dad's picture on it, you know. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You can't duplicate this stuff anywhere. There's no way. And I, even though my story is very, very unusual, as people pass by that flea market area, they go through there, they see things from their past that triggers all kinds of memories. And that, I believe, is the magic of the Dayton Hamvention, part of the Hamvention. But that's a good portion of it, I believe. And
yeah, absolutely.
We've got to keep that alive. But go ahead. Now, you want to go, I know there's some subjects you want to cover, so just have at it. But I wanted to sneak that in because I wanted to set the mood just like me finding my old amplifier out there. I mean, that doesn't equal anything. I mean, it's hard to come up with anything that equals that, you know. And David was in the middle of the shortwave radio thing. So, I mean, so walking the flea market area, he knows. He knows that, you know, I'm going to be very irrational out there. There's no, your emotions take over, and the magic, the complete magic of the Dayton Hamvention overtakes you. You become drunk on it, you know, and there's nothing else like it. You know, there really isn't. Go ahead, sir. I do not want to.
No, I love your stories, Ted. I mean, I think I'll take a quick moment to let all of your listeners know that they can find out more about Hamvention at www.hamvention.org. And, you know, we keep that website up all the time. And I'll remind everybody my call sign is a Whiskey 8 Charlie India, WHCI. And if you look me up on QRZ, and I'm good to get emails, pluses or minuses, would take it all. So anyway, with that being said, the other big thing that I want to tell you about is the buildings. You know, last year we had tents, and then we worked with the county folks, the county commissioners, the county administrator, and they approved $1.5 million for another building. And so all of that was approved, and they went out for the bids and everything, but they just could not get it built in time for this Hamvention. We thought it was this coming Hamvention. We thought it'd be possible, and they thought it was possible, but the building materials, they just cannot get them in time. I don't know all the reasons for that. Of course, there's been an awful lot of damage and hurricane damage down south, so don't really know if that played into it.
Well, that is a wide, sweeping problem, including getting electronic parts and things. You know, we've gone through total, I guess I want to say, I'll just say it, hell, trying to get parts to get back up on the air. We got everything together, you know, and we're ready to put it all together and push the button, you know. But this is not just in like building materials; it's across the board. It's everything.
Well, yeah, and so, but the other other part of that is that it will be built for a Hamvention 19, and also for Hamvention 18 coming up. There was a building there we could not use on the in that main campus area, and that was what they called the Fairgrounds Furniture. Well, they have since they're in the process of moving out of that building, and that's a 7,500 square foot building, and we will be getting that building as well. So between next year, but there's such a huge demand that people that want to come and have booths in the buildings that you know, who knows, we may have these two new buildings and still have to bring in a tent or even more people. So with the new buildings, we will be matching what we had, you know, at Hera, and I think it's going to be much more comfortable too. So and the new building being built will have yet another set of restrooms, and I think they're going to have showers. Don't hold me to the shower thing, but they will be heated and air conditioned.
Well, you know, one thing that was cool in 2017 was the fact that, yes, there was plenty of restrooms, there weren't lines, and the restrooms were clean, and they didn't have any particular aroma about them. they were clean, and that was impressive. To me it was. But anyways, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
In our very first meetings with the Greene County officials, we told them restrooms cannot smell. You got to have people keeping them up, keeping them clean, keeping them neat. And you know what? They listened, and they took all the fixtures out of all the restrooms, resealed all the floors, redid, made sure all the plumbing was secure, and the places were well lit and clean. And they've, they have assured us they're going to do that this year. So the other thing that I noticed was I thought that the great big buildings could have been just a little bit better ventilated. And so this year they are going through all the ventilation systems on the roof, and to make sure that everything is in good working order. And they're going to just leave those on all night to make sure that the temperature is nice and steady as the day starts, because those buildings do not have air conditioning, but they have a pretty good airflow, and they have those big roll-up doors. So even if they had air conditioning, it would probably not work as well as if we just, with those doors rolled open. And I'll let you in on a little secret that I think most people know. The air conditioners at Hera hadn't really worked very well for years, and in some cases didn't work at all. And when they did turn them on, it would cause lots of leaks and problems, and it was frustrating to us putting on a show in the building that was having problems. Now, the Wampler family tried all they could, but they were having, it was just kind of getting too old too quick. So getting old quickly, I guess is the thing, going downhill. So, we left on very good terms with them. We waited maybe to the last moment to kind of part ways, but Hera Arena is in the past now. It was like the Biltmore before that. So Hamvention keeps on growing. So we're really excited. We're going to have the buildings we need. But the most exciting thing, Ted, is really we have the commitment from the city officials, the government officials in the region, from the county engineer to the sheriff, to the township people, as well as the city of Xenia. And so we're really excited about that. So the other thing that we'll talk about in a minute, I'm going to turn this back over to you. We're going to talk a little bit about food. Go ahead. I'm sure you got some good comments.
And you know what you can do? You can buy that brand new ICOM 7300 from R&L Electronics. That's right, R&L Electronics. Or you can buy that brand new ICOM 7610 from R&L Electronics, or a new D-Star radio. I've been talking about R&L Electronics for a good while, and you've heard me go on and on about Roger and the crew at R&L. When you call there, you get answers. They answer the phone. The people answering the phone are knowledgeable folks. They carry everything. They've got transceivers, they've got antennas, they've got microphones, they've got coax, linear amplifiers, they've got antenna tuners. I mean, they've got everything ham radio. They're outfitted for the radio amateur. What a place to go. You'll love dealing with them because they're great people. You'll get great service. Everything will be shipped out promptly. There's nothing worse dealing with somebody that doesn't take your order seriously and you don't know whether or not it's going to get there on time. Believe me, I've been there. I've been there ordering ham gear. That does not happen with R&L Electronics. Roger and his folks care about you, and they care about the fraternity of ham radio. They want to keep you going. They want to keep it going. For the best price, the best possible price, and the best service and quality from individuals that know the amateur radio hobby and really care, remember the name R&L Electronics. Go up to the web, go to Google and put in R&L Electronics, contact them and go to their website, and you can't go wrong. Let me tell you a little bit about the ICOM IC 7610. This is a high-performance RMDR receiver, transceiver. This thing will pick out the faintest of signals, even in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. And the 7610 is a direct sampling software-defined radio, and it's going to change the world's definition. That's the ICOM 7610. Go to icomamerica.com/amateur. That's icomamerica.com/amateur. All I know is we walked through the area, and the biggest problem we had with food was trying to figure out what we were going to get.
Meat on a stick.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That was good.
They had everything under the sun there. And what was cool about that is all the vendors that were selling food, they were all very, very friendly. In other words, that was one of the first things I've noticed because, so many times, people get slammed and, boy, you order something, they just kind of shove it at you, But there, everybody was really friendly, and I was impressed. I can't even remember what all we had. We had 2 or 3 different things, and all of it was good. All of it was very reasonably priced, too. This is another thing, because a lot of times you go to a venue, and somebody sets up, and they're selling, $20 Cokes and $25 hot dogs, and you're like, oh, my God, I can't believe this. No, everything was very reasonably priced, and I thought that was cool. And I was trying to think there, you had several vendors there that were serving beer, which I thought was interesting. And I've not really seen that at a Hamfest, but that's the way it. Let's put it this way: that's the way it used to be when I was a member of the Motor City Radio Club in Detroit, Michigan, actually Dearborn, and they had field day. They had the Stroh Brewery Company out there. And it kind of added to everybody having a good time, kind of like going to a German fest or something like that. I think it really kind of set the whole atmosphere, everything about it, the food, the drinks, and the area that the food was located in. It was easy to get around, and each vendor clearly displayed what they were selling, so you could get thoroughly confused. So. What was it, David? You said you were hung up on something they had there. I can't remember.
I enjoyed the meat on the stick. They had a coffee guy there as well who was selling coffee. Very good coffee as well.
There you go.
I am quite the coffee snob at times too. So it was good.
Yeah, he is a coffee snob. All he uses is those. What are those things?
I use a French press.
Yeah, French press. And it's got to come out like motor oil. And then he's happy.
Yep, 10W40.
So, tell me about your experience with the food there at Hamvention, because it was such a radical change from before.
Well, that was actually part of our plan. That when we went there, we told them, we want to have some say in the food. We were locked out of that at Hera, and of course Hera had the vending, and so some of we told them. I grew up around there. I live out in the countryside south of there, and if you see my a mailing address, you'll see I'm a Xenia mailing address, although I'm not in the city, but still the post office covers us out in the rural area, south of Xenia. But I do want to say that I talked to them. I said, hey, my kids went through 4-H, and we got to have the Cattlemen's Association. It comes right off the farm and into that to where they make they'll make you a steak sandwich or hamburgers, and it all comes right from, it's Greene County beef, I believe, and so you're eating locally. And then along with that, the pork producers the same way. They have tremendous stuff going on, and then there were people there that would have, their homemade noodles and real mashed potatoes with, grandma's gravy, and that was all around. There was great food.
So you can remember the specifics. I was too focused on the boat anchors.
Yeah, now I'm remembering those noodles, because I had a bowl of them, and that was good too. I enjoyed that as well.
I need to get Holly.
Ice cream. We had ice cream machine there, and so let me tell you a little bit about the changes. The bleachers out in the center make things. To to me, to us, it was like, like people were sitting out in the sun, and so they're going to be, we're probably moving those a little bit, and they're going to be a lot more shaded area and more tables. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of picnic tables in Greene County, so the Greene County guys are gathering up, all the tables from, the different parks and that within our county, and they're going to stage them there. And then we're going to have people come over from the what they call Green Joint, which is where it's an alternative sort of high school where you can actually go and learn a trade. Imagine that, learning how to work with your hands. But it is a wonderful program, and they're going to give us a price and put their kids on fixing those picnic tables for us, and then we'll get a new count. If we have to buy more, there'll be more purchased. So we're excited about that. And if we move those bleachers, and there's I can't tell you which vendor yet, but there's a vendor that's talking about and has approached us, and they said, we'd like to put some kind of a shade cloth, in between those big buildings, and that way we could get people have a little bit more shade. And so there's engineers meeting on that this week to make determinations of how they will mount the hooks and things on the building and how that will work. So that area, that center area, will be freed up. But wait, that's not all. There's more. We are going to have more food vendors come in, but these food vendors will be doing maybe some different ethnic foods, and people we have people from all over the world, and we want people from all over the world to be able to get what they need, based on what their diet is. So we're bringing some more ethnic foods in. So
you know what? Do you know what kind of ethnic foods that you're going to be bringing in?
I will find out next time we talk. I will be getting that information.
Have you ever had any Polish food?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you know what pierogies are.
Yes, I know what pierogies are. I've had lots of Japanese food. I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East. Matter of fact, I was in the Peace Corps in North Africa, in Tunisia, Arab country, and ate a lot of different foods there. And I think I was in Doha, Qatar, several times. And the reason I was there, amateur radio. Made a lot of friends there, went over there, and let me give you this quick story. I met with the one of the prime ministers who is that Qatar is a monarchy, and so I met with one of the prime ministers there, and it was really nice. He's founded the Qatar Amateur Radio Club. So we're sitting there, a bunch of the amateurs around, and he has his bodyguards, and we're having this wonderful meal right on that Arabian Sea. Just beautiful. And we were talking. He's close to the same age as I am, maybe just a little older. He went to Michigan State University, and he spoke very good English. And so I told him, I said, when I was a kid, I would just like you were mentioning, Ted, I would dial up and down the shortwave bands. I'd go, how you go up one end and you go, I reached the end, and you go back again, or you might switch bands and you go up and down, and you hear all those sounds, or you hear people talking in languages and stuff. What are they talking about? What is that? And I told him my experiences with that, and he looked at me and he smiled and he said, I was doing the same thing. I wondered what your people were talking about. I was listening. So the bond of for the shortwave listeners, people, younger people in amateur radio that don't have a license, or people that are just listening all over the world, the magic is still there, the magic of the airwaves.
Oh, goodness, yes.
And so at any rate, I got way far afield here in another part of the world. But I will mention when I was in Doha a couple of times, I was a speaker at Qatar University about amateur radio, and more than one time, and just a great opportunity. As I've done the same in India and in Germany, and so at any rate, I've being involved with amateur radio and Hamvention has taken me literally all over the world. And
have you not noticed though? Have you not noticed I mean, I'm not a DX hound. I don't chase DX. I don't know where I'm more of a rag chewer, I guess. But anyhow, when you get on something like, let's just say you're up on 17, and you're working a station in Italy or a station in France, have you ever noticed the mutual courtesy that you get from these people and the mutual respect you get? I know Alan Pitts told me, I know you know Alan, but Alan told me that he had been talking to this fellow overseas for so long and really never gave it second thought, but he walked in at Hamvention, and so I guess the guy looked him up or was trying to track him down. But Alan got to meet the guy face to face, that he had been talking to for so long overseas. And I could tell just the way Alan told the story, this was like, it just kind of blew his mind, to meet somebody. So it is the magic, and it's the fellowship, and it's all those elements that are that make it up. So I can imagine in your world travels and being able to speak about amateur radio to these folks. I don't know how many languages you speak, but when you do that, do you have a translator with you or something like that, or how does it?
Sometimes I have, but in Qatar and in Germany, they really want to practice their English. But there have been times when I use translators, and I guess I'm a natural slow speaker, so it's easy for people to understand me.
You speak special English all the time. So
and the other interesting place I find in the world. Well, I was in Tokyo not long ago. I guess in the last year I was in Tokyo for that Hamfest. I was in Germany, in Switzerland, was Friedrichshafen, and then also I made a trip to Ireland earlier in the year, and then and then the other events that happen stateside. That's pretty busy. When I'm over there, I just love talking to people. But let me tell you about my India trip. Is that I was over there working with the National Institute of Amateur Radio on invitation. I went over there. I got there, and I mean, if you've never been to India, it's a wonderful, exotic place. And I guess I can explain it like this. One of my hosts there, he said, Michael, anything can happen here because this is India, and I really enjoyed that. But when I got there, they had, believe it or not, they had a whole greeting crew for me, and at the National Institute of Amateur Radio, had several buildings there, and wonderful station, and they were so dedicated, and the government was helping them with this. And so one of the things that they wanted me to do was to go from and meet so many different government officials in different places in India to explain to them how amateur radio was would be beneficial to their country, and how it's been beneficial to our country and other places in the world. And I really enjoyed that trip. It gave me an opportunity to speak to a lot of people, non-hams, but we're also in a place not necessarily in the United States for sure. So one of the things that would happen there is that a young person would get pass their amateur radio test. They'd be real excited. But you know how long it took to get a license? To get your license was 1 year. So about 11 months after you took that test, there'd be government officials would come to the door, and the children's parents would answer the door, and they'd say, "Yeah, your little son here wants to get, he wants the amateur radio license," and so they're asking him, "Why do you want to talk to other people in the world? What is it? Why do you want this license?" So there was maybe, I don't know that they were trying to be intimidating, but I can imagine the intimidation factor. You're 12, 13, 14 years old. You don't want to answer wrong. But since then, and I explained to so many of the officials there, I said, we just turn a license in about a day. And this is what they do. And since that time, there have been so many young hams. I mean, I am totally amazed at how many young hams there are in India. And if there's anybody in India listening, I hope you get back to us and say you're right. But they actually have, Ted. They actually have on the curriculum in some of the schools amateur radios, part of the curriculum.
My goodness, wouldn't that be wonderful if we had that here in the U.S.?
Yeah, there was another incident that happened. Do you remember when that Nepal earthquake happened?
Yes.
A few years ago.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I'm sitting down at my shack, and on somewhere on 20 meters, I think it was in the extra portion. I don't really pay attention, and I had tuned down. I was listening to the emergency frequency there, and then suddenly somebody got on there and said, "Does anybody here, can they make a quick contact into India?" To the amateur radio operators, and I thought, well, yeah, I can. So, I'm running full legal limit. I was able to get through pretty quickly. So, yeah, I could do that. And so I contacted my friends they were in Delhi at that time, and they were actually packing up, getting ready to go up into Nepal. And so they gave me all the contact info and exactly what they were going to do, and so I could stay in contact with them. And anyway, I let the net know, I've got a good contact in there. And suddenly I became really popular on that net. And a day or two later, I got information from a gentleman here in Stateside, and he had his wife was traveling from Nepal to Tibet on a bus through this mountainous region. But the bus was on one of those mountain roads, and the road in front of them had crumbled because of the earthquake, and the road behind them had crumbled. They were stranded, this mountainside. So his wife had a satellite phone, and so I emailed him back. I said, hey, please send me the coordinates. Have your wife send the coordinates. And she did. And within a few hours, I was able to quickly get that information into my friends from India who were up and had set station up in Nepal. And they were able to send a helicopter out, and they rescued, I think it was 19 or 21 people, somewhere in that vicinity,
wow,
off of that bus, and brought them back. And not only that, somebody from, I'm out eating dinner that I went out to eat that evening. I get a call from somebody in the UN saying, hey, would you get hold of that guy that, tell him that his wife that she'll be leaving the country. She's safe right now in a hotel, and that she'll be leaving the country in a day or so. We're arranging a flight. I mean, that's the power of amateur radio and having friends, in different parts of the world, because all I did was sit at my shack and made those communications.
Isn't that amazing? Totally amazing. Well, something similar happened to us. Well, I say similar, kind of, sort of similar, on shortwave. We were on just playing music and talking and all that, and every once in a while, in between records, I like to stop and kind of give a little, I don't want to call it a sermonette, but I just get to talking about things the way they are, and how folks have problems in their life, and how they need to deal with it, and how they need to trust God to move in their life, and all those kind of things. So I do my little soapbox thing in between. One guy up on the forum said, hey, they play a lot of really good music, and this Ted guy, he's a little religious, but he doesn't talk very long. So, so he was kind of like giving us a plug. But anyways, all of a sudden, I get this email from a guy, and he says, I'm on a boat. Well, he had left Scotland on a sailboat with his dog. And he was feeling rather despondent. I guess this is the reason why he did it. And he was going to go across the Atlantic Ocean and down to, and I'm trying to think, one of the Caribbean islands or ports down there. And so he's traveling along, and all of a sudden his automatic whatever it is went out. So he had to be up almost 24 hours a day piloting this sailboat, or else he's going to go off into some weird direction. And then and it was taking so long, he ran completely out of provisions. But what he had was this little, like you're talking about, it was a satellite not like a satellite phone, but it was like satellite email. He couldn't surf the web and he couldn't make phone calls, but he could send emails off of an email account on satellite. So he's sending that to me, and then he sent a letter, said, I've run out of provisions. He said, I don't know what we're going to do. Me and my dog, I guess we're going to starve to death. So I said, well, give me your coordinates. So he sent me the coordinates, and I went on the air, and I announced, I said, we got a guy out in the sailboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean listening to us, and he's stranded. Is there anyone can help him? And I gave out the coordinates. Well, within a matter of probably 8 hours, I think it was, a boat had set course to go intercept him. And they took him on board. They gave him a whole bunch of groceries. He got on board and was able to shower and, kind of. And then one of their technicians kind of fixed the automatic guidance system or whatever they use on a sailboat. And he was back in business. And then he kept in contact with us the rest of the way. I thought that was just absolutely unbelievable,
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
But that's the power of, well, I want to call it HF radio because it encompasses so many things. It's ham radio, it's international shortwave radio, and I think that it's just a marvelous, magical medium that you can't imagine, especially when we're on here and all of a sudden, like you said, I get an email. Email is so strange because there are people who are stranded out in the middle of nowhere that somehow have email over a satellite, but they'll send an email. One night I got emails out of the Indian Ocean. I must have had 4 or 5 people, and I don't know why. I guess the propagation was just running in that direction, But you never know where the signal is going. You don't even have a clue. And the same thing is true with ham radio, because even though you are limited to the legal limit, that really doesn't mean much, because with propagation, if it goes in the right direction, there's just no telling where your signal's going to wind up. And
that's the magic that hooked me.
And you don't know what you're going to hear either. I mean, you'll tune in one night, and all of a sudden, man, here's this, here's a bunch of guys talking that you would normally not hear, say overseas. And so I don't know. I mean, I was hooked as a kid. I mean, hooked really bad. And now, of course, I've got 2 sons that have their ham tickets, and they're both radio engineers. David is with Tribeca Nazarene University over here, and I don't know what all he does. He does everything under the sun. But and that's the other thing that I want to say, and that is, when you get young people into amateur radio, there really is no limit to where they can go based on the background. And you look at somebody like Bob Heil as a good example of somebody that has early ham radio experience, and now look where he'll tell you. He'll say, I owe everything I am and what I do, I owe it all to amateur radio. And I think, so now here I am with 2 sons. I went through a terrible, terrible situation with, I guess I want to say family, and we were drained of funds. So the only thing I had was teaching these guys amateur radio, how to pull antennas up into trees, how to build small circuits up that you could transmit on, and all that sort of thing. And now, of course, they're working in professional engineering fields because of that. And I believe it's totally 100% attributed to this fraternity called ham radio. But anyways, I'm talking too much, Michael. I got to shut up and let you carry on, because you're the guy that's got all the information. And we're talking to Michael Kalter, by the way, folks, if you've just tuned in. And Michael's call sign is W8CI. And I don't know what your official position is with Hamvention, but he's the man that seems to know everything that's going on. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Hamvention 2018. And we were talking about food originally, then we got diverted, I guess. I don't know. Well, Michael, I was asking you if you knew what a pierogi was. And you said yes. Okay. Then you know that's like wrapped in dough. Okay. Now, do you know what a gołąbki is?
No.
Okay, gołąbki is stuffed cabbage. Put, meat in the cabbage and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now one more question. Do you know what a garage key is?
No.
That's a key to open a garage.
Oh. I thought you said a Gorofsky. I was going to say it sounds like a beer.
No, I'm sorry. We have to remain on the lighter side here a little bit. I mean, that's what
you got me on that, Ted. You got me on that. I want to
anyhow. But now with the food court or the food area taking on some ethnic food, that ought to be really, really interesting. And I'm kind of wondering. I'm just wondering what directions that'll go. I mean, you obviously the natural would be,
well, we've kind of piqued your interest, but however, we want to, in trying to put on a big event